Nandi, all glories to the summit devotees, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. O Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 2nd Canto, Chapter 3, Verse 21. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabhando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vanshakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyarevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, 2-3-21. Bhara param parta karita drushtam apyutamangam nanamet mukundam shavakaro no kurute saparyam Hare lasa kanchana kankarnova. Okay. You want us to go? Vara param parta kirita drushtam apyutamangam nanamed mukundam shavakaro no kurute saparyam hare lasa kanchana kankarnova. Okay, anyone else? Bhara param parta karita drushtam apyutamangam nanamen mukundam shavokaro no kurute saparyam hare lasa kanchana kankarnova. Bhara param parta karita drushtam abhyutamangam nanamed mukundam shavakaro no kurute saparyam hare lasa kanchana kankarnova. Word to word meaning. Bhara, a great burden. Param, heavy. Parta, silk. Kirita, turban. Drushtam, dressed with. Api, even. Uttama, upper. Angam, parts of the body. Na, never. Namet, bow down. Mukundam, Lord Krishna, the deliverer. Shavau, dead bodies. Karau, hands. No, do not. Kurute, do. Saparyam, worshipping. Harihi, of the personality of Godhead. Lasat, glittering. Kanchana, made of gold. Kankarno, bangles. Va, even though. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. All right, translation. The upper portion of the body, though crowned with a silk turban, is only a heavy burden if not bowed down before the personality of Godhead who can award mukti, freedom. And the hands, though decorated with glittering bangles, are like those of a dead man, if not engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead. Hari. Okay, purport. As stated herein before, there are three kinds of devotees of the Lord. The first class devotee does not at all see anyone who is not in the service of the Lord, but the second class devotee makes distinctions between devotees and non-devotees. The second class devotees are therefore meant for preaching work, and as referred to in the above verse, they must loudly preach the glories of the Lord. The second class devotee accepts disciples from the section of third class devotees or non-devotees. Sometimes the first class devotee also comes down to the category of the second class devotee for preaching work, but the common man, who is expected to become at least a third class devotee, is advised herein to visit the temple of the Lord and bow down before the deity, even though he may be a very rich man or even a king with a silk turban or crown. The Lord is the Lord of everyone, including the great kings and emperors, and men who are rich in the estimation of mundane people must therefore make it a point to visit the temple, provided there isn't lockdown. Must make it a point to visit the temple of Lord Shri Krishna and regularly bow down before the deity. I'm going to stop there. It's a long purport. I don't want to miss all the points. So, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So here Prabhupada is referring to, he opens his purport referring to Navayogindra's teachings to King Nimi in the 11th canto. So there King Nimi, you know Navayogindra's? Navayogindra's, you know Rishabdev. Rishabdev had 100 sons. And his first son is Bharat Maharaj. So the earth region of Jambudvip is called Bharatvarsha, right? After this Bharat Maharaj. Then after that, he had 9 sons after Bharat Maharaj who all became yogi paramahamsas. So they're called Navayogindra. They're mystics. They would like float around in the sky. And one day they were flying around and, King Nimi saw them and they came down. And he offered obeisances and they began giving teachings to him, each yogi paramahamsa. So at one point Nimi asked the question, what are the characteristics of Vaishnavas and what are the different types of Vaishnavas? He asked this particular question. And so Havir Yogindra, one of the Navayogindras, he began giving teachings. They're famous teachings. And Prabhupada is opening his purport with that particular section. Sri Havir's teachings about the different Vaishnavas and their characteristics, different levels of Vaishnavas and their characteristics. So the first level of Vaishnava called Uttama Bhagavat, the topmost devotee, is called Uttama Bhagavat. So it's mentioned there, Sarvabhuteshu yapasya Bhagavat bhavam atmanaha. So Sarvabhuteshu means in all things, people, objects, in all things, yaha pashat, one who sees Bhagavat bhavam atmanaha, one who sees the presence of God. Bhagavat bhavam means his presence in all things. The Atma, who is the Atma, means the worshipable Lord. And Bhutani Bhagavatatmani, and they also see all beings in this personality. Then they're called Esha Bhagavata Uttama. They're called the topmost devotee. Okay, so if you see God in all things, you see God in all things? Anyone here see God, presence of God in all things? Very difficult. When we go to Washington Square Park, you see, you see it all things, all the people there, all the environment. It's very difficult to see the presence of God in all things. So that is very high vision. Also, the word Bhagavat Bhavam means that this Uttam Bhagavat, he sees his own bhava in all beings. Bhagavat Bhava means the bhava that you have for Krishna. So there's Madhurya Bhava, there's Sakya Bhava, there's Dāsa Bhava. There are different types of bhavas for the Lord. So Atmavan Manyate Jagat, you heard this saying before, right? Atmavan Manyate Jagat means as you see yourself, you see the Jagat around you. So if you're an envious person, you see everyone is envious like you, isn't it? If you're a lusty person, you see all these fellows here are lusty. So however you see yourself, that's basically how you tend to see the Jagat, the world around you, isn't it? If you're a fault finder, then you see everyone is finding fault with you. Right? That is a tendency. How you see yourself, you see the Jagat around you, right? So the high-level devotees, these Bhagavad Uttama, they also see their own bhava and everything around them. That is another explanation of this particular verse, that they see their Bhagavat Bhavam, Sarva Bhuteshu in all things. That is, you can't even conceive of that. Like gopis, example given is gopis. So when the gopis were looking for Krishna, they were asking the creepers and the trees and the animals, and they were seeing that their love, they were seeing in these creatures, even the inanimate things. They said, just see how the tree is giving so many fruits to serve Krishna. Just see how the waves are pushing the waves of the Jamuna are pushing the sand nicely, so Krishna will have one nice bed to lie on. So they were seeing their own love and all. So a very high level, Bhagavad Uttama. First of all, seeing the presence of God, that's like a little bit lower. And then higher is seeing your own bhava and all. But who can see like this? You see like this? No, okay, so that's not us. So that's the Bhagavad Uttama. Then there's the Madhyam Bhagavat, the next intermediate devotee. So there, Havir Yogindra, he is saying, Ishvara tadadineshu balisheshu dvishatsucha prema maitri kripopeksha yakaroti samadhima. So this Madhyam Bhagavat, he sees 4 entities. You've heard this before, right? Ishvara means God, and then Tadadineshu means the devotees of that God. And then he sees the Bali Sheshu. Bali Sheshu means childish people. Childish person means they're innocent but ignorant. That is a childish person. So that doesn't just refer to children. I mean, ordinary people out there like that. They're basically like children. They're just interested in sense gratification. Nothing like, they're not complicated people. Just like you go to Washington Square Park, for example, most people there are Bali Sheshu. Just like children, just looking for a good time, enjoyment. They're innocent. And then the fourth type is called as the Dvishatsu. Dvishatsu means they're envious. So with these four types, the Madhyama will behave differently. So with Ishvara, he shows prema. Prema means the attachment to the Lord. And then with the second type, who's the second type? The devotee. He shows Maitri. Maitri means friendship. And with the Bali Sheshu, the childish people, then Kripa, he gives the compassion. And for the envious people, Dvishatsucha, Upeksha, he neglects them. Because it's dangerous to engage with envious persons. If you try to show them mercy, they become more enraged. Who do you think you are trying to show me? So this is called the Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam. He doesn't see the presence of God in all things necessarily. Sometimes if a higher level devotee comes down, he may have that qualification. But Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam by himself doesn't have that qualification. So he sees these four entities and he behaves accordingly. Karoti samadhima. He is performing differently with these different types. Okay, you like this type also? Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam? Anyone here consider themselves Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam? How are you supposed to say without being criticized? If you raise your hand, everyone would look at you. Look at this proud devotee. So you're not Bhagavad Uttama, and no one wants to say Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So then the third class devotee is there. Acharyam eva hareye, pujam yashradayehate. So this third class devotee, he has shraddha for doing the puja of the deity. Acharyam eva hareye, the deity of Hari. He has the shraddha for doing the puja of the deity. So there's shraddha, is two types of shraddha. One type of shraddha is called Shastriya shraddha, which means the faith that is based on scripture. This is the minimum shraddha that allows one entry into the culture of pure bhakti. We say adhau shraddha, right? Adhau shraddha means in the beginning there is shraddha, right? You know this from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu? In the beginning there is shraddha. So what is this adhau? You know this adhau. Adhau means in the beginning. What is this in the beginning? That is also a stage. You think first stage is shraddha, right? Is first stage shraddha? You know, shraddha, sadhu, sangha, bhajan, kriya, right? But there's a stage before shraddha. What is the stage before shraddha? That is called as adhau, which literally just means in the beginning. But that is also a stage. Because in the beginning there is sadhu, sangha, right? That shraddha is coming from sadhu, sangha. So this adhau in the beginning represents sadhu, sangha. Krishna bhakti jama mula ahaya sadhu, sangha. The root cause of Krishna bhakti is sadhu sangha. You understand? It's not that people are just walking down the street and suddenly get inspiration. Let me go check out Radha Govinda Mandir. They don't get inspiration like that. Only if it is given, then they become devotee. You understand? So the root cause of Krishna bhakti is sadhu sangha. And the sadhus, they speak Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam Shastra, and the person gets the shraddha. So that's one type of shraddha. And there's another type of shraddha that's called Lokika shraddha, which means like a conventional faith. It's not faith based on Shastra, but based on, tradition, family, heritage. Like when here in Radha Govinda Mandir, most ISKCON temples, you'll see that there's a big Hindu population also. Not everyone there is devotee, but they all have this sense that they should also worship the deity. And that is called Lokika Shraddha. It's all different from Shastriya Shraddha. In any case, this Kanishta Bhagavat, he has that Shraddha for performing worship of the deity. But Nata Bhakteshu Chaneshu, he does not respect the other devotees or other people in general. Nata Bhakteshu, who are you? For the deity, he'll feel like such devotion, but then, scowl at the devotees around him. You know scowling, this word scowl? Scowl? The word scowl means to give you like a nasty face. You've seen this? I'm sure you've seen sometimes. They will, for the deity, it would be like this, looking very devotional. And then toward the other devotees, they will do the scowling. So, and with to speak of ordinary people, then we just show contempt for them. Of course, we're nice. We're nice. We like preach to them, give them holy name, give them prasadam, but we feel we are better than them. Isn't it? Don't lie. You feel a little better, right? Chaitanya is honest. We feel a little better, isn't it? Even when you became vegetarian, not even chanting Hare Krishna, you felt better than other people. Now you're chanting so many rounds and such nice devotee, going to Mangalarti and doing such nice things. So when you see the other people, you're just like, oh, what are you? That is the Kanisha. He's Sabhakta Pakrita Shmita. He's called Pakrita Bhakta, which means unrefined devotee. So these are the three types of devotees mentioned by Havir. Prabhupada's opening up his purport with this. So at least for this third class devotee, Prabhupada specifically points out, it is specially advised to them that they should visit the temple. This third class devotee, they should visit the temple and offer obeisances to the deity. That is what is being mentioned here. So these third class devotees, or ordinary people in general, they have problem with the narta. All of us, of course, but they have particular problem with the narta. The narta that's being specifically focused in on this particular section is they may have the wealth. So when they have wealth, they think they're better than everybody, even the Supreme Lord. And so because of that, they don't feel themselves obliged to offer obeisances to the Supreme Lord. You understand? It makes difficulty. Jamai Shraya Shrutashri Bear Edamanamadapuma Na Eva Ariti Abhidhatumvai Twama Kinchana Gochna Queen Kunti, she offers this prayer also. That those who are having aristocratic birth, Janma, Aishwarya, wealth, Shruta means like learning, and beauty, Shri. Edamanamadhapuman, their pride expands from having these things. Isn't it? Even you see as a devotee also, if you get a little bit extra dollars, pride will expand. If you think you're cute, the pride will expand, isn't it? For sure. Or you have a little bit of knowledge, you know one or two shlokas more than the rest of the devotees. So then, Edamana Madapuman, the pride will expand. And na eva aritu abhidhatumvai, one cannot fillingly call out to the Supreme Lord. I think Srila Bhaktisiddhanta tells a story called Govinda Namaha, where one young man he bought some popcorn, and he was going to go meet his lady friend. And on the way, I guess it was in Braj, on his way to go meet his lady friend, one huge gust of wind came and knocked the popcorn out of his hand. And as the popcorn was flying over the Jamuna, he said, Govinda Namaha, Govinda, this is for you. That wasn't his intention, but okay, let me take the opportunity. Now it is spoiled, so Govinda Namaha, Govinda, this is... So there's no feeling there. There's no bhava for the Lord. It was just out of convenience. Okay, I lost my chance, so Govinda Namaha. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta tells this particular story. So the people who have the wealth or the beauty, here wealth is being specified, but these four Queen Kunti mentions, then pride gets expanded and they cannot feelingly call out to the Supreme Lord because they feel sheltered in their beauty and their wealth and all these things, position. She says, you are only the wealth of the akinchana gochara, those who are without any possessions, then they can offer with the bhava to you. So these third class devotees, they should at least acknowledge their subordination to the Supreme Lord. They may have this position, that position. They may also feel pride from that. They have the ahankar for that. But they should at least acknowledge their subordination before the Supreme Lord and offer obeisances to Him. That is the first point Prabhupada brings up. Otherwise, the verse is saying, Bara param parta kirata jushnam apyutamanga naname mukunda. Naname mukundam. If you don't offer the obeisances to Mukunda, then your upper body may be decorated with all the nice silks and all these things. Bara param, but it is a heavy burden. And the idea here is that if you're in the ocean and one heavy burden is there, you will sink very fast, right? That is the sense here. So you may have nice opulence in the material world because of your piety, you have opulence. But that piety or opulence will help you to sink very fast in samsara. More than it's so interesting because you consider these things the results of piety, but this piety becomes a problem. And then you become forced to sink down. Now you see all the billionaires, how much nonsense they do and cause so much problem for their own life, actually. And then they're enjoying now. They're not even really enjoying. They're suffering, but they have the wealth. And then they will die. And then the Yamadutas will come like, yeah, boy, we've been waiting for you. And then they will suffer more. So that means the wealth will cause you to sink deeper and harder in samsara. So what is the value of that life if it is not offered to the Supreme Lord? So Prabhupada continues the purport here. The Lord in the temple and the worshipable form is never to be considered to be made of stone or wood. For the Lord in his Archa incarnation as the deity in the temple shows immense favor to the fallen souls by his auspicious presence. By the hearing process, as mentioned herein before, this realization of the presence of the Lord in the temple is made possible. As such, the first process in the routine work of devotional service, namely hearing, is the essential point. Hearing by all classes of devotees, from the authentic sources like Bhagavad Gita and Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam, is essential. The common man who is puffed up with his material position and does not bow down before the deity of the Lord in the temple, or who deifies temple worship without any knowledge of the science, must know that his so-called turban or crown will only succeed in further drowning him in the water of the ocean of material existence. A drowning man with a heavy weight on his head is sure to go down more swiftly than those who have no heavy weight. A foolish, puffed-up man defies the science of God and says that God has no meaning for him. But when he is in the grip of God's law and is caught by some disease like cerebral thrombosis, that godless man sinks into the ocean of nescience by the weight of his material acquisition. Advancement of material science without God consciousness is a heavy load on the head of human society. And so one must take heed of this great warning. So here is being mentioned that the deity is a incarnation, he avatar. Just like you have Kurma avatar, Matsya avatar, Vamana avatar. So the deity is also an avatar, and he comes for a specific purpose. Just like these other avatars, they have specific purpose. So the Archa Vigraha also has a purpose, to give opportunity to the conditioned souls to elevate their consciousness by worshiping him. So if you think the deity is ordinary and therefore you disrespect it because of that vision, then you will sink down very fast. You think, I am not obliged to, what is this deity? So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Jaiva Dharma, you know this Jaiva Dharma book? By Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So he has one chapter, 11, which deals with the deity worship. So there he mentions there are three types of visions of the deity. There's a Chinmaya vision. Chinmaya means completely spiritual. And Manomaya means you have, the deity is full of the awareness. And Jadamaya, the deity is marble. It is just matter, dull matter. This is how three different devotees will see the deity. So the Bhagavad Uttama we talked about, he sees the deity as Chinmaya. He can see the deity in its full spiritual form, performing so many pastimes also. We don't have time for this, but I'm sure you've heard so many amazing stories and pastimes that the great devotees have with the deities. They talk to the deities. Even Sachinanda Maharaj, in his Prabhupada memories, he tells one story where he was watching, the classic Hare Krishna transfer thing with the different fork parts. Every Hare Krishna has one of those things, simple. So he was watching, and apparently he didn't do a full, proper job. And Prabhupada was visiting Germany, and Prabhupada was not there. He didn't see the washing utensils or anything. He was in another place giving darshan. So after he poorly washed it was rushing, he ran back to see Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada said, go back and clean the utensil properly. And so he went back and he saw there was some food stuff still stuck on it. So how did he know? Prabhupada is in one room. And apparently, if I recall the story properly, he said the deity told Prabhupada, the deity like, hey, he didn't clean my dish properly, tell him, let him know. And Prabhupada told Satchidananda, he tells his story in Prabhupada Memories. So for the very advanced devotees, they see the deity as fully spiritual. For the Madhyam Bhagavat, he doesn't have that vision. He sees the deity as Manomaya. So Manomaya means he sees that the deity is having the awareness. He can hear my prayers, and he will accept them and give benedictions accordingly. But he cannot see like the spiritual pastimes of the deities, or deity will do something like still sweet rice for him, like for Madhavendra Puri. The deity is not going to still sweet rice for us, but he is aware and he will accept our prayers and our offerings of devotion. Then the third vision of the deity is Jadamaya. You see the deity is matter. So that is mostly the neophyte devotees now what they see as matter. So if you see as matter, that means you see it in a personal way. So there's anymore. You have this experience? Or it can be with friends also, someone you consider a friend. When you consider someone a friend, your ahankar, your sense of self extends in them. And then it can retract, and then you're like, who are you? You have this experience. Everyone has this experience. So that is the nature of the ahankar. So when your ahankar extends to the entity, then you say, I love them, they're my friend, I consider them mine. But when it retracts, then you see them impersonally. Then you're just another person. Who do I care for you? You understand? So when you have an impersonal vision, there will be negligence of the entity, right? So they're saying that the Lord is just Jadamaya, it is just marble, there's no person there. So the nature of that vision is negligence. So here in this purport it's being said that these wealthy people, they have this tendency, the Jadamaya vision of the deity, so they will neglect. And the result of their negligence is that they become very degraded in the material nature. It is generally seen that jivas don't, especially in Kali Yuga, they don't know how to deal with the wealth. Because Kali is also situated there in wealth, right? We hear in the first canto. So it is generally saying they don't know how to deal with the wealth. And if any wealth comes to you, and in a certain sense, you have to be even more prudent about your offering obeisances to the Supreme Lord. Because the tendency of that opulence is to start to see the world impersonally and see it only as an object for my exploitation, which is what they generally tend to do. So they must be very careful because there's Jadamaya vision. How do you correct this vision? So Prabhupada is telling, there's only one way to correct it, hearing. Only by hearing Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam, hearing the tattva from the tattvadarshi, then you can get the proper orientation of the deity. Just like Krishna says in Gita, Jaya tamam prapadyante tam sataya bhajamiham. So that means, yata, as you approach Krishna, then he will reciprocate in kind. Yata means in accordance with the nature of the approach. Now the nature of your approach is informed in no small way by your sambandha gyan, by your knowledge of that entity, isn't it? Some people approach Krishna and no knowledge, some of us have a little knowledge, some of us have a lot of knowledge. And according to that, our approach will be deep or shallow or negligent, isn't it? So Prabhupada is pointing us to Shravanam, that one has to really hear from the Tattvadarshi so you will get the proper Sambandha Gyan, so that your approach to the deity will be with the proper vision, and then you can get the proper reciprocation. Otherwise, if you don't hear and you don't get that Sambandha Gyan, then the anartha problem comes up. Now you have a little wealth, and then your anarthas really come out. Like nowadays, people are without much wealth or opulence. So that everyone looking all humble because they don't have anything. It's very easy to be humble when you're broke. And you're already in a humble position, so naturally you... But you may have noticed in yourself, and probably more in others, because that's just our problem. We tend to look at others more than ourselves. That as soon as you get facility, then all the anarthas start coming out. You've noticed this? When you get a little bit of facility, a little bit of position, a little bit of glorification, and your kirtan was like incredible. It really touched my heart. Then immediately the anartha starts coming out. You have this experience, or you get a nice donation from someone, get the white envelope, went to a program, give you that white envelope, and you open it, dang, it's a substantial amount. Then immediately you think, what can I buy? Now that, let me give it to the Supreme Lord. Because the anarthas tend to become more pronounced when you have facility to execute your sense gratification, isn't it? Now we don't have much facility, we're in a humble condition. So that is very good for the devotee. Now I can't do my sense gratification program. How many of us have all sorts of weird sense gratificatory plans in our head just floating around, but they can't get any traction because we don't have any facility? Who can, yes, you admit? They're just like floating around, like just waiting for the traction. But we don't have any facility. Krishna has kept us in downtrodden position. As soon as you get facility, then that desire to just get on the ground. It's like, go, while we got the chance. So the problem comes up. So this can only be rectified by shravanam. That's what Prabhupada is saying here, that this is the essential point. Only by hearing Gita, Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam, we can correct our vision of the deity, and thus our approach to the deity, and we can be saved. Otherwise, we suffer. All right, this is the last paragraph. The common man, if he has no time to worship the Lord, may at least engage his hands for a few seconds in washing or sweeping the Lord's temple. Maharaj Prataparudra, the greatly powerful king of Orissa, was always very busy with heavy state responsibilities. Yet he made it a point to sweep the temple of Lord Jagannātha at Puri once a year during the festival of the Lord. The idea is that however important a man one may be, he must accept the supremacy of the Supreme Lord. This God consciousness will help a man even in his material prosperity. Maharaj Prataparudra's subordination before Lord Jagannātha made him a powerful king, so much so that even the great Patan in his time could not enter into Orissa on account of the powerful Maharaj Prataparudra. And at last, Maharaj Prataparudra was graced by Lord Sri Chaitanya on the very grounds of his acceptance of subordination to the Lord of the universe. So even though a rich man's wife has glittering bangles made of gold on her hands, she must engage herself in rendering service to the Lord. So this is the last statement. Shavo karo na kurute saparyam. Hare lasa kanchana kankanova. So the hands, even though decorated with the gold bangles, they shall offer worship to Hari. Otherwise, shavho. Shavho means that is a dead body. And like zombie, so zombie moving around, but it is, they call it the undead, right? In the sci-fi world and all that. It is moving around, but it has no life. So one is having the gold bangles, and one is moving around, but those hands do not serve the Supreme Lord, then you are like the undead. The movement is going on. Of course, here in New York, you see a lot of the undead moving around. They actually look like that, the zombies, especially if you go in the morning hours, which is probably a little dangerous, so you gotta be careful. But last week, I went early to the city, like 6:30 in the morning. So the night creatures are still out and about because the sun hasn't fully risen. Only when the sun rises, they're like, and they go scatter back into their little cubby holes. But as long as the darkness is still there, the night creatures are still roaming around. And I was in Washington Square Park and 6:30 in the morning, and the light wasn't fully up, so you could still see the night creatures were everywhere. The park was completely trashed, and many of them were still sleeping, but some of them were moving around a little bit. I got a little nervous because there was a lot of them, and then I was running into, so I had tilak on, even though I was dressed in conventional clothes, I had bright tilak on. And I really felt the tilak was protecting me because one of the night creatures, he was walking the opposite direction, and he saw me, and he turned toward me, and he started, kind of walking toward me a little bit, and I got a little uncomfortable. And then as he got close enough to see my face, he looked at the tilak, and then he went the other direction. And I was like, Krishna, my man. Your foot giving the protection, the foot of divinity, the tilak. So, yes, this problem is there. Your body is moving and doing things, but it is like the undead because it does not serve the Lord. So, Maharaj Prataparudra, he had great opulence, but he subordinated himself before the Lord. And Prabhupada is saying because of that, he got great power to stop the Islamic invasion was coming. It had already taken a lot of North India, and it was coming to his region also, and he was able to stop them because he got power from subordinating himself to the Supreme Lord. And also because of that subordination, he got the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the inspiration here is whatever our position in the material world, and particularly if we have the wealth, that our bodies and our activities should be offered to the Supreme Lord in subordination, recognizing his position. Otherwise, what is the use of such a body? What is the use of such movement? It is just a heavy burden that causes you to degrade yourself very profoundly. And I think even practicing devotees, of course, many of us are newer, but even if you've been around 10, 20 years, you'll discover there are ups and downs in Krishna consciousness. You have these experiences, ups and downs. And you may, when you're up, is usually because you're in the Sangha of devotees, in the Sangha of the deity, you experience the influence of the internal energy, you are protected. But when you're down and you think, oh, what is the sadhu sangha? What is the deity worship? You don't think like that consciously, but subconsciously you kind of move away for whatever reasons from that shelter. Then you can see degradation it moves rapidly. It's quite incredible how fast you can get into bad habits that you thought you had given up, and you're moving around, the body is there, but it's becoming a heavy burden. Day in and day out, the body is getting heavier and heavier, and you're sinking into degradation faster and faster. So we're being warned here by the Bhagavatam that a life without bhakti is useless. In this section, Shonaka Rishi, he first criticized the whole body, and now he's criticizing each limb. First, he's the whole body he criticized. Now he said, your arms are useless, your eyes are useless, your nose is useless, your hands are useless, your legs are useless. He's going to criticize each limb of the body. And then after that, he's going to criticize your heart is useless, minus bhakti. That is the last verse of the chapter. Even your heart is... So he criticizes a person outside and inside. Sometimes, modern popular spirituality, people no criticism. I don't judge anyone. I'm like, the Bhagavatam not for you. Bhagavatam criticizes everything. That's not Shuddha Bhakti. Dharma projita kaitavatra paramo nirmatsaranam satam. In this Bhagavatam, only the Parama Dharma will be glorified and all cheating dharmas will be ridiculed. So this section is in that spirit. A life minus devotion is a ghastly life. And so in this way, we're being encouraged by the negative inference. Negative inference means that something negative is told to get you to do the positive thing. Just like they say, do bhakti, because by doing bhakti, you'll get the spiritual world. So that is a positive inference. And they say, if you don't do bhakti, you'll go to hell. So that gives the same inspiration, right? To do bhakti. That's called a negative concomitance or negative inference. Anvaya vyatireka. Anvaya vyatireka vyam. So anvaya means a positive inference, and vyatireka. So through the process of vyatireka, saying that if a life minus bhakti is a ghastly one. So you should do the bhakti. That is the encouragement. Okay, so we'll stop there. Anyone wants to say anything, ask any question, or make some comment? Otherwise we can stop there. Yes? Yeah. Yeah, chant Hare Krishna. It's pretty practical. The basic problem, I think, I don't know if this is just the nature of a preaching movement in general, but one of my observations over the years is that we seem to be overly concerned about what others are doing and not enough concerned about what we are doing. And at the end of the day, it is not the others who really matter, let's be real. Even when we're concerned about the others, it's not because we're actually concerned about them. At the end of the day, we're always concerned about ourselves. And because we're maybe finding it difficult to deal with ourselves, so it is easier to project that difficulty in dealing with ourselves onto the environment and engage with the environment so I can continue on with my nonsense. Just like you see that people's lives nowadays are defined by their fight with the enemy. And they're deriving all their life purpose in just whether it's like fight against white supremacy or fight against the president or fight against this thing or that thing. They actually don't want these things to be over. Because if they become over, then what will be their life?
Their whole life is defined in terms of the enemy. So then now no more enemy, then what they will do? So then they will have to deal with themselves. So this COVID situation, lockdown, a lot of persons, they couldn't stay in a temple and be with other devotees and all that. So they were stuck in their apartments, especially if they lived in New York, you can say coffin, you know. They were stuck and couldn't move. And then one thing you notice, I noticed it, I went down to Florida so I could have at least I wanted to stretch my legs a little bit. So I went down to Florida, and one thing I noticed immediately, you have to deal with yourself. There was no one else to really deal with because you were trapped. So that is what spiritual life is about anyway. But the lockdown situation made it obligatory because there was not so many others to project around me. So then I had to do, and then you start to realize, like, wow, the problem really is with me because there are no others around. I'm still agitated like anything. So as a general rule of thumb, you know, spiritual life is about us at the end of the day. And it's about our relationship with Krishna. There's a nice verse. I don't remember location. Well, I do remember the chapter. This is, hold on, let me see if I can find it really quick. You know this Akrura, he offers some nice prayers to Krishna. And then he makes this one nice prayer. Let me see if I can find it really quick. Anyway, the essence of the prayer is that the living entity is actually struggling alone in this world. He comes into this world alone. He dies alone. And in the interim state, he is basically alone. Even if you have some experience and you try to express that to some other, they cannot fully understand. They can only make an inference of what you're experiencing. Basically, you share something you're going through with someone, and they kind of what gets triggered in their head is a similar experience, and then they project that onto you, and then they kind of empathize with themselves, but it's directed at you. Because who can know what you are experiencing inside? No one can know except for the Supreme Lord himself. So we are born into this world alone. We will die alone. And in the interim state, we are also basically alone. The only person who can really help us is the Supreme Lord. And so the person outside who directs us towards the Supreme Lord, that is our friend. I'm just trying to see if I can find this particular verse. It was sent to me not too long ago, so I think I found it. Yeah. Eka prasuyate jantur, eka eva praliyate, eko nubhunkte sukritam, eka eva chaduskritam. This is a Akrura to Dhritarashtra. Every creature is born alone and dies alone. And alone, one experiences the just rewards of his good and evil deeds. I like the verse. So as a general rule, just the more we get into the spirit that this spiritual life is really about me. And not in a sort of self-absorbed sense, but in a sense, in the actual sense, in the sense of reality. And it's not about what others are doing, if they're advancing, if they're not advancing, if they're devoted, if they're not devoted. You know, our preaching at our stage is just to keep us engaged. But even that preaching is about me. So I can stay engaged with Krishna and Krishna conscious activity. Then the more peaceful you will become. You know, and practical thing is we have to just practice that. You see your consciousness going outside, then you say it anyway. That's a very good word. Anyway. You said wanted something practical. So this is a practical thing. Anytime you see the consciousness running outside, away from yourself, anyway, what is this thing? Well, you know, why giving so much serious to this? Problem is here only. So, you know, my mind goes there also all the time. This morning I went there actually. I shared some stories from the kirtan yesterday. It was so nice, so magical kirtan yesterday. And someone messaged me, why are you guys not wearing the mask? And I was like, my blood like boiled up. And so then I commented, I was like, relax. You know, I wanted to say something just like curt and would pinch a little bit. And then I was like, anyway, this is so, you know, I'm getting caught. So then I went back, erased the thing, and then deleted the message and deleted the conversation. I was thinking about blocking the person also. Even I didn't know them also. But it's like block, then I was like, anyway, like my mind running to all these external things, Japa was supposed to be going on. I saw it right at the beginning of Japa, and I was just like, anyway. The problem is inside. So that's a practical thing. Somehow or other we have to get ourselves to be interested in our true self-interest. So I don't know if I could say more than that. That's the best I can do. Okay, anyone else want to say anything? Yes?
Actually, I like something that kind of combines both of what you guys said. It was like the other day, and it was like I was getting chastised in the middle of my life team. And like the false ego wanted to justify and like explain so I can see this. And I was just like, I was in the curves and I was in between Brahman and Dean. I was like, I could see myself wanting to explain, like, just let me treat Hare Krishna. And the person just like, treat it. Okay, yeah. Because that is the solution. And it was just like, yeah, everything will go away in due time when I chant the Maha Mantra. The more the more intensity I give the Maha Mantra, the more it reciprocates with me and helps me on my journey. So really, it's the practice right there. And it's actually devotional service. And Prabhupada says that there's a theoretical knowledge of Aham Brahmasmi, but the practice of that knowledge is devotional service and engagement service. And the Maha Mantra is the supreme service.
Yes. No, devotees, we like to say, what is practical? Bhakti yoga. We just have to practice it. Okay, then we'll stop here. Hari Om Tat Sat. Thanks a lot. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.